Hi guys, welcome back to the Curly Reader. My name's Amanda, and today I want to talk with you about the Fountains of Silence. So the Fountains of Silence is our group read for Historathon this year. This is a young adult historical fiction novel, and it is set in the late 1950s post Spanish Civil War in Spain. So Franco is still dictator. He still has complete control over the government, and we are following a young girl, Ana, who lives in Spain, and a young man, Daniel, who is visiting Spain from Texas. So that's kind of the general overview. This book is told in multiple perspectives. It is told from both Ana and Daniel's point of view, but we're also getting the point of view of multiple other people. Some of those include members of Ana's family. So we have her brother, Rafa, her sister, Julia, her cousin, Puri, and I think that might be it. I think that's all of the point of views that we get throughout the book. In true Ruta Sepetys fashion, this book is told in very, very short chapters. So each of the chapters are anywhere from 1 page to maximum like 5 pages long. There are like over 140 chapters in the book, so it gets a little daunting, but it's very short chapters, so it's a quick-paced book. Also throughout the book, we get excerpts of different true historical documents from their like collection of different oral histories and documents throughout history, that sort of thing, from different ambassadors and public affairs liaisons and things like that from Spain at this time. And this was taken from the research that Ruta Sepetys did when she was preparing for this book. So kind of my thoughts about the book as a whole. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. I really enjoyed learning about this point in history because this is something that I had never really, like, I knew there was a Spanish Civil War, but I didn't really know what that meant, what it entailed, who were the two different sides of the war, what were they fighting about, that whole thing. So the Spanish Civil War took place in the 1930s, and it was basically Francisco Franco versus the Republicans, and he wanted to instill basically one religion, Catholicism, for the entire country, and he wanted everything to be run through the church and through the government as one being. And so all the schools were Catholic, everything had to be very regulated. And so Ana's parents in the book were Republicans, and they wanted to start a Montessori school, and so they were basically hunted down by Franco and killed. So her and her siblings were all orphans post-Civil War time, and this is all right at the very, very beginning of the book. But that kind of sets up kind of her and her siblings' mentalities throughout this book. And it's very interesting to see each of their different personalities and how they handled that, abandonment, but not really. The fact that their parents were killed. They grew up in different atmospheres. Their brother was taken to a home for boys, which was very, very different than the home for girls. And lots of horrific things happened to him at his, orphanage, basically. And the oldest sister is wanting to protect her siblings and has taken on a lot of burden in trying to maintain their way of life and give them, keep them all together and make sure they all stay alive. So anyway, that was very interesting to read about, was just, the different siblings and what each of those meant, or what each of them did and how they handled the situation they were put in. So it was very apparent that Ruta Sepetys did a lot of research when she wrote this book. There are multiple pages of bibliography in the back of this. She went to Spain. She talked to people who lived through this. She, researched the United States side of it. She researched the Spanish side of it. One of the very interesting things that she does in this book is that Daniel, the character from the United States, is an aspiring photographer, and he is obviously very, very into taking photos. And that, as a plot point and as a character trait for this character in this time, was a very unique and really neat thing to read about. You get to read about what he was looking for in the pictures he was taking and why he took the pictures he did, what they meant to him, how they appeared to other people, the power of the pictures that he was taking. You know, he wanted to get a picture of the Guardia Civil, which was basically Franco's henchmen, and that was a big no-no, and so he was trying to get a picture of them throughout the book. That was something he wanted. But just the different pictures that he took pictures of the slums, he took pictures of the really, really rich people, he took pictures of everything. And the juxtaposition of putting all of those pictures together and side by side, and how they told a story of what was going on in Spain, I thought it was just it was something I had never read before, and it was just very, very interesting to read about. I am not a photographer. That is not a passion of mine. I don't know anything about photography, and so I found that just absolutely fantastic. Another thing that was a theme throughout this was silence. You know, the title is Fountains of Silence, and the reason being, the fountains are very prominent in Spain. It was kind of the focal point of each of their villages was the fountain. And in Spain during this time, there was so much silence happening, and silence that was being held for different reasons. People had different reasons for keeping silent. Some people kept silent because they felt guilty. Some people kept silent because they were afraid. Some people kept silent because that's what they had been taught to do. And it was very interesting the way that Ruta Sepetys went about exploring the different reasons that people were silent. And one of the things that stood out to me personally was the thought of asking questions. In Franco's Spain, questions were discouraged. You would get reprimanded for asking questions. You were told to be quiet and don't ask those questions. Why would you ask a question like that? Don't think those things. And children were not allowed to ask questions about things. And it just made me really appreciate growing up where I do, where we are encouraged to ask questions, and we are encouraged to find out the truth and to find out the answers for the questions that we have. And, you know, one of the things in here is one of the characters was saying that the only way that they get answers to their questions is to go and to sit at their parents' grave and just ask them into the air and hope that they get like a feeling about it, or that God speaks to them. And nobody has ever given answers for all these questions that they have. And it just broke my heart because, you know, growing up in such a divided society and not knowing the answers to questions, and these children of war that were forced to basically inherit their parents' sin, which it wasn't, but, you know, in the eyes of the government, it was just heartbreaking to read about. And so that was kind of the Spanish side of it. The American side of it was just Franco allowed, at a certain point in his reign, let me start over. At a certain point in his reign, Franco, whatever, I keep going back and forth. Franco decided that he was going to start allowing American tourism into Spain, mostly because he needed our money. He needed economic growth, and he saw an opportunity with Americans and with tourism. And so he built these hotels that were basically, you know, like resorts, and he allowed Americans to come in and have their fun. And meanwhile, the people that were working at these resorts were living in slums. And, you know, one of the illustrations in here basically was that, you know, this bottle of wine that you buy, just whatever, that would be like 2 years' wages for some of the workers. And so he allowed this to happen. And so these Americans are coming in, they're partaking in the tourism, but they have no idea what's really going on in Spain. And so that was something that was interesting in the little snippets from the real historical documents, is seeing kind of the American perspective of Spain during this time and what we thought we were doing and what we were actually doing, as far as the government goes. We thought we were helping the Spanish people, and we really weren't. So that was something that was different to read about. Daniel in the book, he really wants to learn about Spain and what's really going on, and he doesn't want to live in ignorance. And it's just hard because the people that he is coming in contact with just keep telling him over and over again, you'll never understand. You're never going to understand what we're going through because we can't talk about it, because if we talk about it, we'll be arrested and then we'll be killed. And we're just kind of at this impasse where we're stuck, and it was hard. So I really enjoyed, like I said, learning what I did throughout the book. There are certain things in this book that I didn't really enjoy very much. One was the really short chapters. Ruta Sepetys' previous books I have listened to in audiobook format, and this one I physically read, and so I don't know if that kind of led to me enjoying them a little bit more or less or whatever, but with this one, especially at the beginning, it was really, really hard to get into because the chapters were so short and we were bouncing back from perspective to perspective, and not all those perspectives were like intertwined, and so you were just kind of bouncing around a lot. So I didn't really love that. And then about 3/4 of the way through the book, there is an 18-year time jump. So things just end, and then you jump forward 18 years and they pick up again. And that was very abrupt. I didn't like that at all. I kind of understand why she had to do it, because things pick back up when Franco dies and the dictatorship is over and the more freedoms start coming out and that sort of thing. So I get kind of why it had to happen, but it was still very abrupt, and I think it just kind of threw everything off. The ending was wrapped up very quickly and kind of in a nice little bow, and it was just too easy. And as many struggles as they were throughout the book, I didn't really care for the ending very much. But I still really, really enjoyed the reading experience, and I enjoyed the book as a whole. Another topic that this deals with that I had no idea that this dealt with is the fact that Franco's government was basically stealing babies from mothers. They would go into the hospital to have their baby, and if they were not an upholding citizen in the eyes of the government, they weren't a good Catholic woman, then they would be told that their baby had died, and the church would take their baby and they would adopt him out to other people. And they estimate that over 300,000 babies were stolen during Franco's reign, from I think the years of like 1939-ish up to 1980 is when this finally stopped happening. And the first case that went to court regarding it didn't happen until 2018. And so that to me was just like, I had no clue that that was something that happened in this book. And so just for trigger warning aspects and that sort of thing, it was a lot to read about. Anyway, so that whole topic is gone into in depth in this book as well. There is a lot of nods, many nods, I don't know, whatever. There are many nods to Spanish society and Spanish heritage in this, which I really, really enjoyed. There is a aspiring bullfighter that we get to follow a little bit in here, and we get to kind of experience that, which I thought was neat. Some of their traditions and what was important to them, that sort of thing, we learn a lot about. And so I really, really enjoyed learning through this book, and I still love Ruta Sepetys' writing and will probably continue to read her work from here on out. But anyway, I think that's it for Fountains of Silence for me. Like I said, I gave it 4 stars. Really, really enjoyed it. So glad I read it. And I really, really hope that all of you that read it with us enjoyed it as well. And so, yeah, I think that's it for me this time. So if you have read this, please let me know what you thought down below. I would love to hear your opinions and your thoughts, any of those things. And other than that, I hope that you enjoyed this, and I hope that you stick around and subscribe. And until next time, see ya!